The last letter. Every morning at exactly 7 o'clock, an old postman named Thomas walked through the same quiet streets. For 40 years, he had carried other people's words. Love letters, birthday cards, apologies, goodbyes. But there was one letter he had never delivered. It had been sitting inside an old wooden box in his room for 25 years. The envelope was yellow with age. On the front were only 4 words. To my son, Daniel. Thomas had found it in the bottom of an old postal bag many years ago. There had been no proper address, only the name of a small village. And because he could not find Daniel, the letter was returned to storage. Years passed. Thomas never forgot it. Then, one cold winter morning, he finally discovered where Daniel lived. Daniel was no longer a boy. He was a 40-year-old man living alone in a small house at the edge of town. Thomas stood outside his door holding the old envelope. He knocked. A tired-looking man opened the door. Daniel. Yes. Thomas held out the letter. I believe this belongs to you. Daniel looked at the envelope. The moment he saw the handwriting, his face changed. He recognized it. It was his mother's handwriting. His mother had died when he was 15. For 25 years, Daniel had believed that she had left him nothing. Not a message. Not an explanation. Not even a goodbye. His hands began to shake. Where did you get this? Thomas quietly explained. Daniel opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The first line said, My dear Daniel, if you are reading this, I am probably no longer beside you. Daniel stopped reading. His eyes filled with tears. He continued, I know you are angry with me. Daniel remembered the last argument they had. He had been 15. He had shouted at his mother. He had told her that he hated her. The next morning she had gone to the hospital. She never came home. For 25 years those words had lived inside Daniel. He had carried them like a punishment. But the letter continued. Please don't remember the last words you said to me. Remember the first time you called me Mom. Daniel covered his mouth. Tears rolled down his face. The letter said, You were 3 years old. You were afraid of the dark, so I sat beside your bed until you fell asleep. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Daniel sat down on the floor. Thomas stood silently at the doorway. Then Daniel reached the final paragraph. One day when you are older, you may have a family of your own. When that happens, hold your child a little longer. Forgive them when they make mistakes. And whenever they tell you they hate you, remember that sometimes people say the opposite of what their hearts mean. At the bottom of the letter were the final words. I am proud of you, Daniel. And beneath them, Love, Mom. Daniel held the letter against his chest and cried like a child. For the first time in 25 years, he allowed himself to miss her. Thomas quietly turned toward the door. But Daniel stopped him. Wait. Thomas looked back. Why did you keep this letter all these years? Thomas smiled sadly. Because some letters are too important to be lost. Daniel looked down at his mother's handwriting. Then he said, I thought I lost my mother 25 years ago. He paused. But I think I found her today. Thomas left the house. Outside, snow had begun to fall. He walked slowly down the empty street, carrying his old postal bag. For 40 years he had delivered thousands of letters. But that day, for the first time, he realized something. A letter does not always arrive when it is supposed to. Sometimes it arrives years later. Sometimes it arrives when the person who wrote it is gone. And sometimes, it arrives exactly when a broken heart needs it most. That evening, Daniel placed the letter inside a small wooden frame beside a photograph of his mother. Then he whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. And for the first time in 25 years, he smiled.